Hello and welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is American Ben, and today we're going to talk about The Expanse. I originally was not going to either watch or discuss Season 6 of The Expanse. To be completely honest, I was just so put off by Season 5 that I've lost all interest in continuing with the show. Yes, I know I'm being a baby, and I got enough comments from y'all to guilt me into covering it. You can thank this dude and others for pulling me back into the fold, you bastards. So first off, I've now watched Season 6, and there were some things I liked and some things I didn't. One of the positives is that in Season 6, it does seem like The Expanse is starting to find itself again. The plotlines are more intriguing in Season 5, there's more action, especially in the final episode, and the dialogue is more intelligent. I can't say that Season 6 is as brilliantly written as Seasons 2 and 3, but that's a hard standard to meet. Still, Season 6 did get me interested. However, it wasn't exactly perfectly executed because, indeed as everyone feared, stuffing the entire narrative into 6 episodes caused so many problems, and left questions to be answered, and made some of the character arcs resolve in bizarre ways. I mean, if The Expanse never picks back up again, the Laconia side plot is rendered completely pointless. But back to the character arcs, because that's what I want to talk about for today's video, as one of at least 2 videos I'll do on The Expanse, the second being an analysis of the character's major political decisions. But first, I want to give a shout out to Magic Spoon, the cereal with a delicious sugary taste, but no sugar, and the sponsor of today's video. Don't worry though, this isn't going to be a soulless cookie cutter pitch. The truth is, I actually like this product a lot. You may not know this about me, but as you can tell from this picture, I'm really pale. But also, I like to powerlift and build my strength and body, and I like to do so naturally, which entails finding quality foods to help advance my fitness goals. Now, despite a few amateur brain surgeries I've performed on unsuspecting participants, I'm no doctor and can't offer you nutritional advice, but I can say with a clear conscience that I think Magic Spoon is a good product that actually tries to provide a healthy alternative to sugary cereals. Cereals are some of the biggest offenders when it comes to spiking blood sugar, and this one is truly low carb, while delivering a blast of protein, 13 to 14 grams actually, with every serving. It's keto friendly and also gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and yes, it indeed has 0 sugar. And it comes in many different flavors which spark memories of childhood when that bowl of cereal was your last consolation on the path to the dark winding hell that was school. Drink that milk long, did ye my doomed friends? Magic Spoon actually sent me a bunch of their cereals in this beautiful box, which helpfully claims on it that the cereal doesn't in fact taste like the box. But as I do for all my packages, I tasted it anyway. And guess what? The box is pretty delicious and keto-friendly itself. However, more importantly, the cereal is legitimately scrumdiddly-umptious. The peanut butter flavor is great, but fruity, yeah, that's my jam. Magic Spoon is sweetened with a blend of monk fruit and allulose, the latter being a rare natural sugar found in foods like figs and raisins, but which has no impact on your blood sugar. Listen, if you need to get an extra high protein meal in during the day, whether for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or a midnight snack, then Magic Spoon might be a great option for you. So please click the link below to get a variety pack of Magic Spoon cereal today. And when you do, be sure to use my promo code GENFILMS at checkout to get $5 off any order. Or just go to magicspoon.com/GenFilms. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason or are just irretrievably depressed, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Just please don't send them regurgitated cereal. So here's the deal. You click the link below, and being that I've eaten all of my free cereal already, I'm gonna finish off this yummy box. Thanks again to Magic Spoon, and now back to today's video. Anyways, as I said, some of the character arcs resolve in somewhat weird ways because of the rushed nature of the final season, which, by the way, is not something I condemn the show's creators for. I get it, it was either 12 cheap episodes or 6 expensive ones. I don't know what I would have done were I in the showrunner's shoes. But I digress, god damn it, I am the great digressor. Despite the awkward conclusion to The Expanse, if it is even an actual conclusion, let's take some time to review and explain the arcs of the major characters in the show, or at least the ones who make it to Season 6. I won't be including characters like Anderson Dawes because he was clearly abandoned and killed off before he could, well, arc. Still, there's some interesting things to look at in terms of character progressions, some of which reflect the show's missteps in Season 5, and others which reflect an attempt to fix these errors in the final season. Let's start with my favorite character, the Deep State Mamacita Christian of Asurala, Secretary General of the UN. During the first 3 seasons of the show, Asurala was the epitome of the Expanse's brilliance, and certainly a prime example of his character's depth. As Undersecretary General of the UN, Undersecretary General Esteban Sorrento Gillis, and in subtle opposition to her more nefarious counterpart Deputy Secretary General Sadavir Ehrenreich, Asurala had to be what I would term a benevolent Machiavellian.
How's your son, Esteban? He's up for parole soon.
You're really gonna play that card?
During the first 3 seasons, her morals were sort of unclear, but she had clear beliefs about how to build and maintain a functional and strong society. And knowing that powers in play, both domestic and external, were in opposition to her policy agendas, she had to resort to whatever means necessary, whether totally scrupulous or not, in order to ensure that her proposals won the day and that the Earth would benefit in the long run.
My diplomatic credentials have been revoked. I've been banned from Mars for life.
We may have stopped a war.
One could never fully trust Asurala, as surely she was always 3 steps ahead of even the audience itself. She was not of pure moral character. She was imposing, convicted, and willing to get her hands dirty for a higher good.
I haven't been completely honest with you. You can't nuke Io. I need the proto-molecule.
This made her an essentially philosophical character and, more practically, a believable world leader. However, in Season 4, she began to lose some of her dynamism as she slipped into a more clear-cut persona. She became a simply curmudgeon, exaggeratedly bitter character who was openly condescending towards the populace.
We need you to come off as more approachable, nurturing, the caring family matriarch. It tested.
Get the fuck out!
While I didn't love this devolution, it somewhat fairly reflected a character who had lost herself. But during Season 5, she swung to the other extreme, and rather than regain the deep political philosophy that inspired her actions earlier on in the show, she became a more conventionally moral character who eschewed the deep thinking and moral ambiguity of her character's past.
There are millions of people in series. Hundreds of thousands of children.
What are the scenarios for a full-scale attack?
Is the intention to incapacitate or occupy?
I will not be a part of this.
I do, however, like how the writers chose to resolve this in Season 6, though. Rather than just have Asurala experience another extreme personality shift, they continued her arc from the previous season, but acknowledged it.
Have I gone soft? Was I trying too hard to be good when I should have been ruthless?
You used your best judgment.
And lost.
Thus, now the show gives us the tools to question with Asurala whether or not her nascent adherence to a strict moral code, one that espouses compassion, in fact, has subverted her ability to make intelligent decisions as a leader. Next up, we have James Holden, captain of the Rocinante and first president of the Transport Union. There's not a lot to say here. I like Holden very much, but he's a pretty one-dimensional character, and he's supposed to be. He's the straight man, the unwavering hero. He abides by a categorical morality that informs his sense of justice, and he at almost no point in the show fails to heed this moral code. He cares about people very deeply, shows no hesitation in dedicating his life to bettering the Sol system, and perhaps what makes him most likable of all is that he is supremely committed to his family, the crew of the Rocinante, the members of which he would travel to the end of the system and back to save.
As long as we're still breathing, we're alive. I can't lose you.
Yes, there isn't much progression for Holden. Not even his coffee habits experience much of an arc. Next up is Alex Kamal, the only character on this list who doesn't appear in Season 6. Alex begins the show as a Mars loyalist, but more of a coward than most of his Martian counterparts.
This ain't good at all.
You know, for a badass Mickey Navy boy, you're a pretty whiny little bitch.
I was just a transport pilot, you yahoo!
Over the course of the show, Alex learned to be brave. Not incidentally, but because he didn't want to be perceived as a coward or weak by his peers.
Surprise, assholes!
He felt like a failure to a degree. He failed as a pilot in the Martian Navy, and he failed as a father. So his third chance to succeed came aboard the Rocinante, and he wasn't going to let the challenges he faced aboard overcome him. Where Alex wasn't such a great father, he sort of became the ultimate family member to the crew members of the Rocinante.
Naomi was right, and you know it. This ain't gonna end anything. And our family needs our help right now.
He was always protecting them and trying to save others at risk of his own life, a modus operandi which eventually led to his demise. His death was tragic, but it proved his utter valiance. Okay, on to Kamina Drummer, whose arc is probably the most well done in terms of its nuanced progression and its thoroughness from start to finish. It's her story which feels most resolved by the end of Season 6. When Drummer is introduced in Season 2, she presents herself as a hardened belter. She's not faking either, she's truly tough and somewhat toxic even.
Matching outfits, really?
It's a work in progress.
Most of all, she was clearly a loyal belter who was committed to helping the belt pull itself out of its subservient status vis-a-vis the establishment powers and to assert its sovereignty as an equal state to Mars and Earth.
Inyalata go through the ring, call it their own. But a belter opened it. We are the belt.
3 events come to impact Drummer in such a way, though, that she unwillingly evolves as a person. The first of these events is her introduction to the crew of the Rocinante. As she comes to see through her interactions with Holden & Co., at times there are more important objectives for the stewards of the Sol system to pursue than the Belt's immediate interests, because the Belt's future is tied in with the interests of the system at large. Thus, like many characters in the show, Drummer faces an internal conflict between making the right decisions in a moral sense and remaining loyal to the Belt. Drummer's dedication to the Belt never wanes, but as an intellectually honest person, she cannot be blindly nationalist or support the actions of Marco and Naros. The second event that impacted Drummer was the arrival of Clyce Ashford aboard the OPAS Behemoth. What began as a confrontational and subtly competitive relationship between the two characters turned into a mentor and mentee dynamic as the show progressed. Ashford came into Drummer's life just when she needed him. At the time of his introduction, Drummer was becoming more and more rash in her actions, rigid in her enforcement of rules, and unmerciful.
What are you doing? This one supplies him. I'm going to space him and make him watch in full view of the crew.
I think that at this point, Drummer was buying into an idealistic version of Belter values. Everyone must be committed to the cause, and any failure, deviancy, or disloyalty cannot be tolerated, lest the Belt should become weak. But Ashford, the wiser, more seasoned vet, helped moderate her a bit, and eventually led her to work within the framework of inter-system norms.
You think this act of mercy makes us better?
A small step, but forward.
The third event that impacted her was the Belt's rise to prominence. As Drummer bought into the stated agenda of the Belter ruling class, she was sincere in her goal of achieving sovereignty for the Belt and nothing more. However, as the Belt began to achieve normalization as a power, various factions of the Belt sought further gains, whether control over certain entities in space or vengeance for past wrongs. Thus, because the Belt's goals changed, Kamina's fell out of line with them, and where her devotion to the Belt remains true, her blind reverence does not.
Marco and Naros, you hunted me and mine, and still we are here. Unbent, unbroken, unbowed, and you are nothing.
Drummer experienced some other changes throughout the show as well. She became closer and closer with the crew of the Rocinante and other characters and began to have moral conflicts. She also became more and more in touch with her emotions, and as such, she expressed both sadness and anger more openly. Where before she might have been irascible, at present, she's hostile at times. times because of the conflict she's facing between her loyalty to the belt and to her friends on the Rossi, or perhaps better stated, to doing the right thing.
You self-righteous shit.
It can't be easy for her to know that many Belters view her as an inner apologist. Drummer has also become less eager to die for the cause as time has progressed, and she's surely become less eager to see other Belters die for the sake of Belter statehood. Where back on the Behemoth she was willing to space crew members for drug dealing, in Season 6, she had a hard time even kicking someone off of her crew who made a crucial mistake in battle.
We will find a safe port where we can resupply. A place where you can stay.
No, I don't want to leave you.
It isn't forever.
By the end of the show, Drummer is neither a totally different person than she started as in Season 2, or a character at peace. But she is a fuller human being who has learned to moderate some of the rougher sides of her personality, and find a common ground between her passions and her intellect. Next up is Naomi. Naomi is a disappointing character to me because where she started out dynamic, she ends up pretty one-dimensional, and Season 6 does nothing to ameliorate this. Naomi was one of the most morally ambiguous characters in the first few seasons of the show. She was kind of a more calculating, disingenuous version of Kamina Drummer. She projected neutrality while secretly pursuing an agenda favorable to the belt, and when caught or called out for her dishonest doings, she would cover for herself by launching into indignant, morally specious rants about how her deeds were attributable to some sort of higher principle.
Guns, railguns, nuclear bombs. No weapon ever brings peace.
She wasn't bad or evil necessarily, she was just a complicated human being, the kind of character that makes The Expanse so great, that brings it to life. Naomi was the character whom everyone loved to hate, and to me, that signifies the success of the actress's performance and the writing behind the character itself. She was frustrating, she didn't care to please, she was duplicitous because she wanted to advance her own interests, not the ones you wanted her to advance. However, in the last few seasons, she became insufferably virtuous, completely committed to fending off evil in the Sol system, even to the point that she was willing to kill her own son.
If you let Marco escape to spare my feelings, you just made me responsible for everyone he kills from now on.
You're not responsible for my choices.
Then stop making yourself responsible for mine.
All that was great about Naomi in the earlier seasons of the show was just sort of abandoned, and what we're left with is a fairly pure hero not too different from Holden himself. Well, I guess maybe his virtuousness rubbed off on her, or at least that's my best explanation for her emergence as a more straightforward protagonist. Next we have Amos. While Amos is certainly far from being a one-dimensional character, he is a fairly consistent character throughout the show. His upbringing amidst brutal environs turned him into a person who was tough as nails, quick to violence, and short on empathy, though perhaps not as short as he'd have us think.
I don't want to fight you, Alex. Please don't make me. Because if we do, who's going to fly the ship?
And then over the course of the show, he learned how to empathize with others, if not emotionally, then intellectually. As in, he's smart enough to understand what someone is going through, even if he isn't emotionally affected by their circumstance.
You and me, we're a lot alike. We've been around. But the captain, well, he's as close to righteous as it gets out here.
He was able to identify aspects of Clarissa Mao's being that are akin to his own traits and experiences, and through this discovery, he was able to connect with her and care about her, even if he wasn't truly disturbed by her pain and struggle.
People like us, the things we do, it's not just on us. This world is messed up.
During the show, Amos also learned about friendship and family, concepts that he had a distorted perception of given his childhood on the vicious streets of Baltimore. And as he grew attached to his family on the Rossi, he gained some meaning in his life. In his own way even, he loves the crew of the Rossi.
Praxis helping him rebuild it.
You miss him?
He was good company. He was my best friend in the whole world.
Amos is the kind of guy who has both a strong dark side and a strong light side, and depending on which side of himself he cultivates, his life could take entirely different paths. Well, he ended up cultivating that side of himself which is caring, selfless, and brave, rather than that side of himself which is violent, emotionless, and callous. And this leaves him off in a place where not only is he a positive contributor to society, but he's actually on the verge of happiness. Unfortunately, no character was more neglected in the final season than him. He makes no further progression in season 6, and actually he's barely on screen. Next up we have Clarissa Mao, or Melba, or Peaches, Jules Pierre Mao's daughter. Obviously this character takes an extreme arc over the course of the show. She began as a violent sociopath, not unlike Amos was earlier in his life, who showed no remorse for her vile actions. And then after an epiphany she had while working under Clace Ashford on the OPS Behemoth, she pretty quickly morphed into a guilt-ridden do-gooder who was ready and willing to sacrifice herself for others. In other words, where Amos learned to make the best of his psyche, Mao simply transformed into an unequivocally virtuous character.
You know you just gotta shoot out, right?
That's the first time he said I was part of the crew.
Her arc was a little bit hard to believe, but I suppose her evolution can make sense if we view her as the spoiled daughter of a mega-rich corporate tycoon with no sense of humanity, who by venturing out into the Sol system learned, albeit slowly, to see the error of her ways. And then her newly gained benevolence in the present is a product of her desperation to atone for her sins. Next up we have Bobby Draper, who began the show as a wide-eyed Marine and fervent Martian nationalist who, like so many proud Martians, dreamed of building an independent, sustainable Martian society. However, her path to becoming a champion of Mars was always doomed to stall, because while she is exceptionally skilled, she's also an independent thinker, and in that regard, she was not the most cooperative soldier.
They fired first. Maybe not at us, but they definitely fired first.
Sergeant, this is bigger than you.
I know I'm not wrong about that.
Well, truth is a tricky thing.
Her own sense of morality, beyond what the Martian Navy would have liked her to believe, began to sow seeds of discord within her as she witnessed the corruption of various Martian officials and the ensuing unraveling of Martian society. Eventually, Bobby came to see Earth as the more benevolent player than Mars, if not a perfect one, and she thus ended up in sort of a depressing position. She must feel ashamed to don the UN uniform in Season 6. She'll never get over that as a former Marine. It's certainly not what she had planned from the beginning, and despite the great heights she's reached, she's working directly for one of the most powerful people in the Sol system, none of this was what she wanted or was part of her dreams.
Time for your performance review.
My what?
You hate this job.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Bobby became more cynical as she continued to do the right thing, because the right thing never seemed to be what she had wanted to be the right thing. That is, the right thing was to leave Mars behind and to give up her hopes for making it a sustainable habitat. We might even say that the right thing for her to do was to betray Mars as she did. Her damn conscience just kept getting in the way, and now we leave her at the end of Season 6 completely derailed from her pursuit of a successfully terraformed Mars and having to somehow find meaning in fighting for Earth, a power she was raised to look down upon and to despise. She must feel somewhat at a loss to find solace, as no matter what she had done, Mars versus Earth, she was going to end up not sleeping well at night. As far as her personality goes, besides becoming a bit more cynical, Bobby remained pretty much the same throughout the show. She was a tough Marine with no time for horseplay or emotions.
Sit still, you're gonna need it.
Oh, get me off this ship!
Hit your tits and pucker up, it's time to peel the paint.
However, like many of the show's characters, she was softened a bit following her interactions with the crew of the Rossi. She seemed to gain some sense of affection for her new friends, but even to this day, I'm not exactly sure she's putting pictures of them in her wallet. Next, we have Monica Stewart, a more minor character, but one whom I find to be worth mentioning. Her arc is interesting because she went from sleazy journalist to well-intentioned, valiant servant of Earth.
I bet you're one of those tough guys who gets really sentimental and chatty after sex.
She's yet another character who lost her moral dynamism in favor of a more clear-cut and steadfast sense of righteousness somewhere along the way.
This makes us look weak.
It makes us all look weak. That's why it works. If you want the enemy to see you as human, you have to see them as human.
My best explanation for her shift is that her experiences in Season 5 made it hard for her to continue to see the events in the Sol system as but a game. Next up is Marco Inaros, commander of the Belter Free Navy. There's not much to say here. From his introduction in Season 4 through his death in Season 6, he remained a megalomaniac bent on advancing his own legacy through a populist pro-Belter working man platform.
We are the military arm and voice of the outer planets, and we are the ones responsible for striking our oppressors on Earth and Mars.
He's the straight antagonist to Holden's straight hero. The only times Marco showed any deviation from his cold facade was in his interactions with his son, though even in their relationship, he displayed abusive, controlling behavior.
You have every right to be angry with your mother. To be sad about what she did to you. Feel whatever you feel.
Which last but not least brings us to Filipinaros himself, the aforementioned son of Marco. Philip's arc, or perhaps Philip's personality shifts, are the most confusing of all. He sort of ebbed and flowed between his father's maniacal psychopathic state.
At least it wasn't the Innas who raided our supplies.
Whose side are you on?
Well, I only...
Drummer is our enemy, same as the Innas.
And that of a confused boy with a good conscience and a loving heart.
I don't... She needs help.
One moment he murdered his friend in a flash of anger, and the next he was questioning his father's actions and caring for the working men of the Pella. Even if he was experiencing extreme shifts to his psyche and morality, and continues to deal with great inner turmoil and trying to shed his violent impulses and rage, this wouldn't seem to bode well for him moving forward unless he gets some serious help. However, I think the real problem here is the same problem at fault for all of the rather awkward and extreme personality shifts the characters take. They happen too fast to be believable. The problem isn't only that these characters become one-dimensional heroes, though in some cases, not Philip's, that is a problem in itself, it's that they become this way so quickly because of the truncated nature of the final season. Philip, for instance, was forced to deal with and resolve his inner conflict in short order, and thus in episode 1 of season 6, he was a psychopathic murderer, and in episode 6, he's all of a sudden an enlightened soul, ready to shed the stench of his father's depravity. I suppose in concluding, the best way to summarize the character arcs in The Expanse is to say that the latter seasons mostly thwarted them from the promising path they were on, and while this might be partly due to the writers losing some of their inspiration, Season 6 witnessed a return to form to some degree, and so I'm instead left mulling over how a lack of funding hurt the show. That said, I still had a lot of fun watching The Expanse, as always, and I do hope it comes back for another season. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. If nothing else, I needed to put this out to buy some time for my political analysis video of The Expanse. But if you did enjoy the video, please do give it a big thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of the great content on the way, and hit that damn notification bell so you don't miss a damn thing. For now, my name is American Ben, and I'll catch you next time. Generation Films, peace.